Well, hi there, everybody. This is Justin Dyke from CartoonSmart.com, and what we're going to be looking at today is a SpriteKit-based project that we are going to incorporate the camera roll into, and by that I mean we're going to pull an image out of the camera roll, and we're going to use it inside of our game or whatever the app is. And I just came across this recently programming the Storyteller's iOS Starter Kit 2 because I figured it would be nice to give people an easy option to pull out a photo from the library or take a photo and then incorporate it into the book itself, so it could replace a character's head or something like that, and be on every single one of the pages of the book if they wanted it. So that's we're basically going to be looking at that exact same setup here. If you guys don't know how to create a new project in Xcode, just go over to a new project and let's all get on the same page with these particular settings over here. Language, this is going to be Swift 2, okay, and game technology is going to be SpriteKit. I'm just going to make it universal, and then of course, I've already got a project saved out here that we're going to play with. So let's go ahead and get rid of everything that is currently inside of here. Actually, what I'll do is I'll leave our touches because we might need to use that in a little bit. Yeah, okay, that's fine. And then let's go ahead and set up the game scene over here in the better than ever, I should say, .sks file, or your SpriteKit scene file. I'm going to make the background just a nice pure white color, and then I do have some assets that I've already imported in here. One of them is this cute little furry body, which we'll put a face into. The other one is a face mask, so this is actually going to be an image that we use to mask out the image that we bring in, or the photo that we bring in, okay? And let's just go ahead and get them set up real fast. I'm just going to pinch on my trackpad to kind of zoom in and out over here, and I'm going to pull in a color sprite. This is going to be my furry body, okay? So it's going to look something like that. And then let's grab another color sprite, and then this will be my face mask. And you can really kind of go either way with this in terms of whether or not you want to put this above or below the body. I think it makes a little bit more sense to go below it. So let's just make it go down to, well, let's be safe. We'll put it down at like -10. And if you see any white space in here, you could even kind of just make this a little bit bigger if you wanted, or make the texture a little bit smaller. Either one will work. Okay, now this guy I don't really need to interact with too much, so what I'm going to do is just lock it. It's a lock node selection. If I got to unlock it ever, I just right click over here and just unlock node selection. But that way anything behind it becomes a little bit more accessible to me. And you know what? I'm going to use this face mask as the texture for it, but this is actually going to be just a placeholder. I'm going to call this camera roll placeholder, and this is where the image is going to go. And what we'll be able to do, this is kind of neat, is basically put the image inside of here, okay? So this is going to be basically just a little template area for that image. We'll make the image exactly this size, okay? And then we're also going to take that same mask that you're looking at right here, but we'll create it programmably, and we'll also make sure that that is inside of here, okay? Now, the cool thing about this is that down the road later on and other pages that you want to show this, potentially all you'd have to do is put in here this camera roll placeholder, and of course I'll write the code for you to basically just, if it goes, hey, we got this camera roll placeholder right here, let's replace it out with that last image that we pulled from the camera roll, and we'll put the mask in there and all that good stuff, okay? But what's neat is, I think, is that later on, what you could do is you could squish this, you could move it around, you could even, like rotate it, do all sorts of stuff like that. There's the rotate. And that will affect both where the image goes, because again, it's going to take up exactly that same size. And maybe you're going to squish it, squash it, whatever, and then also the mask as well. So it's really, really pretty flexible. But for right now, just keep in mind that this is really just the placeholder, but I'm just coincidentally using the same texture for the mask right here. I mean, if it's mentally easier for you to comprehend it, you could always just make it a red square or something like that. Okay, so we've got that. Now let's head over here to our code. And after SK scene, I want you to put a comma, and then we're going to write in here UI image if we can find it, image picker controller delegate. So oops, and I knew I messed that up. There we go. Where's the there it is, delegate, and then do another comma, and it's going to be UI and navigation controller delegate. And you can read more about these, but long story short is it's just kind of 2 extra frameworks or delegates that we're going to have to be using to make this code happen. All right, so we're kind of committing to doing certain things later on based on other things happening, right? Like picking out something from the camera, we're going to want to be able to dismiss it, things like that. And then I'm going to do something that I've never actually done in a tutorial, which is to create a class extension. So I'm going to go over here to new file, and I'll explain why in a moment. And we'll just call this game scene camera roll. Okay, and create that. And then go ahead and just be sure you still got SpriteKit in here. And you're going to write extension and then just put in there game scene and put in your opening and closing brackets. So we're going to enclose all of our code inside of here. But the cool thing about this is these 2 files essentially get treated as one. Okay, so to just kind of prove this function, can I call this? All right, and then you can print out something hi, and then over here, right, can I call this? Maybe I should save it first. And we'll see. Well, I'm not getting any errors yet, but the true test is, of course, in the output window. If we actually see that we are printing out hi, and we're just going to ignore that little message there for as long as possible. Okay, so sure enough, we did get that, and this is kind of a good little reminder too that I think I'd prefer to be testing on an iPad, at least for a while. We'll go test on an actual device and later on, but and then let's also make this a landscape project, because that fits our scene a little bit better. But the point is that we can now work inside of our game scene camera roll, and we don't actually need a function name that, and maybe now we'll actually complain that doesn't exist. But the point is that your game scene you can kind of reserve to handling your game stuff, right? But then you can extend that class so that you can kind of organize all of your camera roll stuff into one class file, and then 2, when you're working down the road, you might go, hey, wait a minute, I've already got this game scene _ camera roll file. I can just import into my other file or project. So with that in mind, let's go and put in a couple or declare a couple variables here, and we do need to do this inside of the game scene file. Okay, so even though you've got this nice little kind of reserved area for your camera roll stuff, you do need to declare your variables in the game scene.swift file, at least if I remember right. And one of them we'll do is let's say var mask. I'll just say masking camera roll choice, and this will be a Boolean whether or not we will actually mask it, and I'll show you guys how to not worry about masking if you don't want to. And then down the road, what we're gonna have to do is save where we positioned that mask within, or the image that we were masking within the mask, and we'll do that with a variable called mask offset. So I'm actually going to show you guys quite a bit in this series, and you probably got a little hint of that if you're looking at the assets I imported in. We've got these arrows in here that we'll use to zoom in on the image within the mask, squash it, stretch it, and all that good stuff, and we'll hold on to some of that information via the mask offset. And what else do we got? I think for right now, that's enough variables to get us through. And let's head over here to our game scene camera roll file and begin plugging away. All right, so our first function that's going to kind of get the party started here, we're going to name this just get photo for right now, and to down the road. We'll add on to that just a little bit. But since we're just getting going, let's just put in here get photo, and then we're gonna write in here let image picker equals UI image picker controller. Maybe I can grab just that. There we go. And if you read over here, what does it say? The UI image picker controller client manages customizable system interface for taking pictures and movies on supported devices. Okay, and for choosing saved images and movies. All right. So does that give you a good idea of what it does? All right. Good. So image picker dot model presentation style. This is going to equal dot current context, and it says a presentation style where the content is displayed over the view controller's content whose defines. Okay, right. So again, just kind of how we're presenting this guy, and then image picker dot delegate is going to equal self. Okay, and that's you might remember from minutes ago, we have our UI image picker controller delegate. Man, that's a mouthful. And so now we're actually saying, okay, the delegate here is going to be self. So that means we're going to write functions later on that are going to deal with, kind of what to do when we actually pick out an image. And then for our image picker dot source type, what we're going to say is UI image picker controller. Source type, there it is, I passed by it, and then dot, well, here's where we get to choose between whether or not we want to get started with the camera or the photo library. Until I start testing on my device, I think we should go with the photo library, and that'll pick out some of the, even if you're testing on the simulator, they've got some images in there that you can choose from. And then we'll say image picker dot allows editing. We're not going to edit this guy. And then here's a little bit of an essential SpriteKit code for dealing with the UI view controller, because keep in mind our kind of SpriteKit world is its own little contained environment, its own little scene and everything. It has its own view. But what we're going to do is pop this view on top of that. So we're going to say self dot view, and if you did leave out these exclamation points, I'm sure they would probably recommend you get them all in there. Dot root controller. So we're just basically forcing a value out of 3 things in a row, and then just VC for view controller. Then we're just putting here present view, and that's present view controller. There we go. And this is going to be our image picker. Animate it, so it's going to kind of slide up into its world, and then on completion, we're not going to put any code in there. We're just going to write nil. Of course, we are going to do something on completion, but there we go. And I'm wondering what, oh, did I have no, that's a little odd. I don't, yeah, okay, I think that was just one of those one-time errors. Okay, so we do have a little bit more that we're going to add in here, but let's just test this out as is. And I'm going to, as soon as the view loads up, I guess if we could do it as soon as we touch down. You know what? Let's do that just in case. Just for right now, we'll put it inside of, well, actually, eventually we'll probably put it in the touches began anyway. We'll detect touching some button and then open that up. So that makes a little bit more sense. For right now, you are just going to, oh, you know what? We didn't get our landscape orientation. There we go. It's like, is it raining outside, or is my computer just about to die? It's rain. Okay, so I'm just gonna click down here, and it says camera roll would like to access your photos. Okay, and okay, well that probably makes sense considering we've not implemented everything fully, but at least we kind of got sort of got there. Is returning yes. Okay, I think I ran into that before, so we'll look into that problem in a moment. But there is one other line of code. I'm just going to copy this guy in here because it's definitely a mouthful. If UI image picker controller is source type available, and then we're checking to see if we can actually get to the photo library. And probably that makes a little bit more sense with something like the camera, where not every device is going to support the camera. Although I cannot think of a modern iOS device that does not have a camera that would support iOS 9. Yeah, right? I mean, come on. Okay, so let's look into what's causing this auto rotate problem. Okay, so here it is. Inside of your app delegate file, so this little pesky guy right here that we tend to ignore, what you're going to want to put in here is function application, and as soon as you start typing that, you're going to probably get exactly what I've got over here, but just match it up for sure. Here, I'll widen that out so you can see it all in one line. It says if let presentation view controller equals window dot root controller presented view controller, okay, blah blah blah. If presented view controller is kind of class UI image picker controller. All right, so that should look familiar right now. Basically, what we're kind of getting at here is if we're dealing with a UI image picker controller and the presented controller is not being dismissed, okay, there's that little exclamation implying that it's not the case. What we're going to do is return UI interface orientation mask.portrait, and then otherwise just if that's not the condition, then we're going to come down here and return just the .landscape, or of course you could change that to .portrait or .all if needed. But so the kind of weird thing about this, and I don't know if this is something that's maybe changing on Apple's side, is that if as long as that's in here, it does not actually switch this to portrait. And from what I was reading, it does seem like in the past, there wasn't really a supported UI picker for picking photos in landscape mode, which, if that's true, I mean, I can't remember exactly, but if that's true, that kind of doesn't make sense. I mean, I don't know why you wouldn't be able to just pick out things in a landscape mode. Maybe on an iPhone it makes a bit more sense, but it does seem to be working, and of course you could test that over here too, and I've tested this on the device, and it does not switch to portrait. So maybe that's again just something that's kind of changing. Let's see real fast with the iPhone. So we'll click OK, and sure enough, it looks like everything's okay over here as well. And obviously, I've been testing a little bit, haven't I? Okay, so let's. Although I don't remember testing my phone. Okay, so I'm going to stop that and just get a good glimpse of that code before we move back over here to our game scene.swift file. Oh, actually, we've already called that. All right, so back over here in our camera roll. Let's start to deal with what happens after we have picked our images. And again, consider this would, this is more of maybe an antiquated test. Okay, so let's come down to here. And we're going to write in here function image picker controller. Well, we'll do did cancel in just a moment. The one that we're going to play with right now is did finish picking media with info, and you can go ahead and just leave that as is, and we're kind of ready to put our code in here. Actually, we got a ton of code, but at least for right now, what you can do is put in here if picker dot source type equals, and we'll put in here UI image picker controller source type, there it is, dot photo library, or if you picked out something from the camera, which of course we need to go and we'll change that function in a little bit to test out the camera as well. Okay, so if our picker's source type is either one of those, let's proceed inside of this little block here, and then let's also, I'm gonna go ahead and make it so we're not writing in the middle of the screen. Come down here and write function, and this one will be image picker controller did cancel, and at this point what we're gonna do is write picker dot dismiss view controller, and if you want to animate that on the way out, so it just slides down, go for it. I think that's a good idea. True. On completion, we're not going to do anything, and we're just going to write picker dot delegate is going to equal nil now, because remember we set this up to self when we kind of got the party started, and when we don't need it anymore, let's just go ahead and make that nil. Now, of course, we can, anytime we recall this, the delegate will be back to being self again, and so on. And then what we can also do is put this same code right over here, because remember, this is when we just cancel it, so we didn't pick any image at all. But in this case, we did pick an image, and we've got the image, so we don't need the view controller there either. So let's give that a test. I'm going to go and switch back over here to the lovely iPad 2. Okay, so click down. I must have switched devices because it's asking me again. And, I can just go grab anything. It doesn't, it's not going to do anything at this point. But you did see that it slid down. And, of course, we need to actually do something with our image. So we can put a little note here, do something with the image we picked. And, yeah. Oh, and you know what? Let's test just to make sure that canceling is working okay as well. Okay, so just click anywhere, cancel it out, and sure enough, that slides out of the way. So let's go back and change this function just a little bit. What I want to write is get photo from source, and that way we've got kind of one function that's going to work for both cases, whether or not we're picking from the photo library or if we're going to start the camera. And what's nice about this is they're almost identical. So what I'm going to do is ask or just require of whoever calls this get photo from source that you provide us with the source type. Okay, so we're putting in here this type variable. It's going to be UI image picker controller source type, and then what we can do is also check over here source that it is source type available. Okay, and I suppose we should put something in here that just says what device are you using. And there we go. My phone rang. Okay, and then what we'll also do, of course, is take our source and then put that right down there as well. Okay, and then when we go and call this function, let's head back over here to our GameScene.Swift file. It's going to be get photo from source. You can see it's prompting us now to provide that particular type of source. So you can just put in here either photo library or camera. Now I don't know what's going to happen actually if we test the camera. I guess I'll just comment that out. If we test the camera on an iPad, I would imagine that it's going to tell us that. Yep, exactly. What device are you using? Well, it's a simulator. Okay, so let's check this with the photo library, and hopefully we don't see that prompt. Okay, sure enough, that looks good. Let's be daring and plug in my iPad and check this out. Okay, so let's switch this back to camera, and I'll run this one more time. By the way, I was gonna stream the my iPad over here to my Mac to show you guys this, but it seems that Xmirage is not ready for iOS 9 yet, so I can't exactly do that, but I can still do it from my phone. So what you're gonna see here just momentarily is I'll bring it. So this is my phone looking at my iPad. I'll click, and sure enough, you'll get. Well, there's part of my desk. So let's get that out of the way. And there is probably one little, not a big problem here, but yeah, you'll most likely want the camera to be facing the user, right? So we're going to put in here dots camera device, and if I remember correctly, this is just dot front. There we go. So we'll run this one more time. moment of suspense. So there we go. And I'll tap that. And you get to see what I actually look like. Okay, so let's pause the video for right now because we actually have gotten quite a lot done. And this will be a good jumping in point for our next video where we get to do what we promised here, do something with the image we picked.